Hi everybody, this is Rhys Barber from Audiology Associate. It is Friday. I hope you have a good weekend, guys. But you can see here we've got one patient in this compilation, just one ear as well. So this patient's come through very, very dry skin. You can see all these little lifts, these little white patches all around the outside of the ear, quite dense cilia. The ear canal looks quite pink, but look at this wax. It is tough as old boots. It is completely dried out. It is a mixture of wax and dry skin, and it is impacted right down on top of the eardrum. The patient, bless him, had been using a little bit of olive oil for a couple of days, but I think this had dried out so much the olive oil just couldn't even penetrate into it. You can see here this layer of dry skin and wax here that's coming away. Don't forget the normal migration in the ear canal, the skin migrates out laterally, so it moves along the canal. Imagine it like a little conveyor belt with a very thin layer of wax sitting on the top. Now that's kind of normal wax production, and that's how everything should move. When you get very, very dry skin like this, so you're not producing as much of the natural sort of oils that we produce on the outer part of the ear canal in most people, then what happens then is that skin really dries out and it starts to harden up a little bit, that top layer, which is what you can see here. So what we're having to do with this is peel this layer down. Now obviously you saw the blockage is much, much further in. So why are we working on this section first? Well, when we have these layers of dry skin, they can sometimes be interconnected with the piece that's on the front. So what we do first of all is we try and detach that piece first, and then that helps us to remove that later section. But I'm having to use the crocodile forceps here, but watch what happens when we try and pull this out. That skin is really held on. Do you see how firmly that was attached? Now, if obviously that was loose, when we get a grip on it with the forceps, that's going to come away really, really easily. But what you can see I'm having to do here is literally peel that down the canal. Look at that coming away. You can even see it starting to peel off on that reverse left-hand side there. You can see it just start to come away. But as this comes away, look at a thin, dry, hard layer here. That's what this blockage further in is made up of. So you can see how this is going to be a tough old one to get out. Excuse me. So we're just working around the outside edge here. There we are, just working down that left-hand side. You can see where we had that lift. Look how that peels away from the skin underneath. Now, this isn't painful for the patient at this point. This is a lot of patients actually, especially when they get dry skin in the ear canals, they find this quite a nice sensation because it almost gives you a bit of a scratch deeper in the ear canal, if you like, you can't normally get to. There we go, just pulling down from the top. See how it forms that dry skin sleeve around the outside edge there? So really pulling down. What I'm doing at the moment is using a combination of the two tools. We're using the suction tube to actually detach it from the canal wall, and then we're going back in then with the forceps just to try and pull this away. You can see how, look at it just above the skin, look how it peels, see how it peels down the canal, look at that coming away. Now what ideally I was hoping was going to happen here is when we start peeling that layer from the top, it was actually going to start to peel and sort of drop forward that much, much deeper section. Now you've got to be a little bit more careful here with that little bit further into the ear canal. So we're in the portion of the canal that's surrounded by the skull. So you're directly on top of the bone. So a very, very thin skin layer here. Ultra sensitive, that bit. So if you're pressed down on it, it can be quite uncomfortable for the patient. So you can see I was just doing a very gentle lift. It's hard to do because you've got to hover just above that wax just to lift it off the canal. So we've introduced a little bit of olive oil in here. Olive oil, ear canal, olive oil. And you can see we've gone right in now. We're looking to try and loosen this bit off. So I'm working around the outside edges. Olive oil works really, really well when you've got these sort of dry skin problems, especially when you start to get it moving because it works underneath the layers and that stops it from sticking back down again. And it also works a bit like a lubricant, if you like, for the ear canal. So when you do get a bit of movement to the wax then, it tends to slide much better across the canal wall. So we've gone back to that little section we talked about earlier. We've gone in with a fine endo this time. So we're a little bit of a thinner tube. It makes it a bit easier for me to be more accurate, so you can see exactly where you're placing that. Sometimes with the standard size ulnar tube, you can see the outside edge, but it's difficult to see exactly where that's gone. So I'm having to really gently here sneak underneath and just lift, but you can see how these layers are crumbling apart under the jaws of the crocodile forceps here. Now, a few of you obviously know the different types of tools we use. I'm sure there's somebody out there going, could you get in there, Jobson horn, pull that out? You couldn't with this one. It's too close to the eardrum. So by using a Jobson horn, what you have to do normally, if you imagine, let's do it that way. Imagine this is your block of skin and wax you can see here. The eardrum is sitting there. So if you had to go over the Jobson horn, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to hit the top of the eardrum, the really flexible part of the skin, which is first of all going to be really uncomfortable for your patient, but secondly also really dangerous. If you push too hard, you can't see what you're doing. You're going to push it straight into the eardrum. So what we're doing here is lifting off the bottom of the canal. We've got that really good lift. So we've got a nice piece detached from the canal wall. That means then we can go in then with the crocodile forceps, very, very gently. There you go, lift and work underneath, grab. Now I'm looking here to see if the whole thing comes away, and it didn't. You can see it just broke another section off the front. So this is, at this point, you know, as an audiologist, when you're doing this kind of thing, you're starting to think, well, am I going to be able to get this out? Is it going to be able to come away? So I've opted to go back in now. This is the standard size ulnar tube. You can see it's slightly wider. Lifting again. Let's see if we can get a grip on it this time. We're hoping now that when we pull, this whole thing's going to slide up. You can see how the olive oil helps there. It slides across the base of the canal. It pulled it forward slightly, but it didn't get that really good bit of movement. What I'm looking for at the moment, this is attached on all canal walls. So what I'm looking to see is that little jolt of movement, that little bit of extra movement that I would have expected, which means it's coming away really nicely. So I'm going to go round and detach a little bit more from the sides. Let's try here. Get a good grip. Very, very gently pull that again. You can see I've just got a tiny bit of a wiggling motion going on there, and that's just to try and free it up from the canal wall, but it's just tearing every time. And I think it wouldn't really matter what type of forceps you went in with here. I think this skin is layer upon layer, and it's got that little bit more of a crumbly nature. There, you can see a little bit of movement there. Because the surface is so hard and bobbly, the suction tube can't get that really good grip. It kind of tries to, but you've got a gap somewhere always, which doesn't allow the good suction grip that we need here. Back with a fine end now. Let's start probing around the edge of this blockage. Is there any looser section here that we can exploit to get this out, get a bit of purchase on the wax? You can see as we lift, look how much more mobile that plug is now. Can you see what I was talking about that a little bit of extra movement where it's just starting to twist? So it's starting to come away, but it's because of the size of it and the shape of that particular part of the ear canal, it hasn't got a lot of wiggle room. So as much as you try and lift and reposition, it's not really got enough room to pull a section out. Now, if you look to the bottom left-hand corner, which we'll see when we go back in, you'll just see a little hint of blue-grey. Now, that's the eardrum. So this just shows how close we are to that actual drum itself. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. Oh, a little bit of dry skin came away from that top right section there. So let's go back there. Let's see if we can pull it down instead and away from the top section. Not really budging. It is firmly wedged in here. So to give you a bit of a backstory to this patient, they did have their earwax removed, probably I think they said about 2 or 3 years ago, had started experiencing some issues with their hearing about 4 or 5 months ago. Put a little bit of olive oil in there. That seemed to alleviate the issues. Then it came back. A little bit of Otex I got in there, alleviated it, came back. So this patient's had hearing problems here with this particular piece of wax for about 4 or 5 months. What happens when you put drops in? Sometimes you'll find that it will, things will sound better for a little bit, but then you'll have these problems coming back again. So we're just starting to get some really good lifting motion here. I'm going to try, I've broken a little bit off, and this is always a little bit more delicate, just trying to get a grip on that surface and pull. It almost, you can see how it almost comes out. It just moves forward, but just gets stuck. Let's see if we can get a good suction grip here now. Let's try. There we go, there we go, there we go. So it's just that bit of movement, and it's, when that happens, oh my goodness, it's such a relief because you've tried all sorts of ways. You'll see this when we take this away now. It's got this husk, and especially when we put it on the paper afterwards against the rulers, but it's this real husk of skin and wax. It's really tough old stuff. So that's what you could see from the front there. you look at what's behind it. When we lift it up now, look at that. You can see how that dry skin was attached to the base of that canal. There we go. There's the eardrum, looking a lot better there. Ear canal looking better. Patient hearing so much better. So this is what we removed. So the piece there to the right-hand side, that's the final plug. The piece on the left-hand side, there was the dry skin we took away. So that's 3/4 of an inch there, just under 2 centimeters. But yeah, a tough one to do, that one. Really, really wedged in there. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did voicing it over. She'll see you again on Monday. As always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of your ears, take care of one another. Have a fab weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye, everyone.